calling this meeting of the Library Advisory Board to order at 7:02 p.m. It's our first meeting of 2025. Welcome. Roll call is always a little bit funny because I feel like I should be like calling out people's names, but we don't really do that. We're mostly all here. And we have a moment later on in the agenda where we'll do some more introductions and sharing. So I'll just say that we have met first item is approval of last month's minutes. Those were attached with the agenda. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Laura and Charlie were here. So yeah, you know, you could, I guess, approve the
I didn't see anything
concept.
that I had questions about.
For those of us over here, is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve. I second. Hi, Katie. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yay.
We're just at the point where we're approving last month's minutes.
Okay.
Did you have any questions or concerns about anything you saw?
No, I'm good.
So those are approved. We just want to stay. Public invited to be heard. Anyone want to say anything from the public? No? All right. Gosh. Not that much.
To drum up some people to come for that part.
So it's a little bit out of order, I feel, to do an icebreaker before welcome and introductions of our new members, but I think we've all had a chance to at least briefly meet our new members. The icebreaker I came up with for this first meeting of the year is, what is a book that you are looking forward to reading this year? So it could be something that you plan on, it could be something that you expect will be published at some point. It could be even something that you are just still on the hunt to find, like this year I've got to read a good book about, or I got to find a novel that is like this. So however you choose to interpret that, but if you are thinking about what your reading plans are for 2025, what is something that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'll go. My guilty pleasure is murder mysteries. And so I want to read the Louise Ten book. I think it's called The Greatest. I'm on somebody's book.
And you want to read it because you've read the other ones?
I've read all the
Yes.
books.
I'm happy to go next. So I keep collecting library cards, which some of you already know about, because I am an e-reader. And so then it helps me move up waiting lists. And there's a book I've been following for a long time called There Are Rivers in the Sky. And it was available. I'm like, oh, I'm going to read that next. And then my book club decided to read it. And suddenly it was crazy unavailable. And it has been for like the last 2 months. And so I probably won't have it read in time for my book club. But I still want to read it because it was my suggestion. Yeah.
What was it?
There Are Rivers in the Sky. It has gotten very popular again all of a sudden. As good books happen to do sometimes. It seems they come in waves, a good book.
I'll go. Although I've actually gotten both of these books because I put them on hold and they actually came in. So right now I'm reading Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune, which is a sequel to The House by the Cerulean Sea. And my guilty pleasure is science fiction and fantasy. But not all science, it has to be good. So I'm kind of partway through that, and I'm not sure what I think of it yet. And one I just finished that I really was looking forward to was called Something in the Woods Loves You. Who was it by? Can't remember his name. But it's by a man who had serious depression. I mean, couldn't get out of bed, depression. And he starts walking in the woods near his house because his wife pushes him out to do that. And he reconnects with how he was as a little boy and loving the woods. And each chapter has like a tree or an animal or something that he relates nature to healing from depression. It's really good, very well written. So I highly recommend that one.
No, I don't really have a book I'm looking forward to as much as I am like partway through a book and so I'm looking forward to finishing it. But I'm reading Wintering by Catherine May. And it's like all about, it's kind of like a memoir, I guess. And she has some difficult health issues or whatever, and she's going into a period of her life where she's wintering, as she calls it, but then she also goes through different ways that different cultures who live far in the north and it's very cold prepare for winter, and kind of how you can relate that to your own life. But it's interesting, like memoir plus like practical tips and tricks or whatever. So it's kind of I'm finding like I'm binging it. So
Can I ask how you found your way to that book? Because I've noticed that has, it's not a new book, but there's like a real resurgence in interest.
I think it came out in, I'm looking at it right now, it came out in 2020. So it's kind of still new. I know it had been on my like to-be-read pile, but then I think, as winter approached, I must have seen it on social media or something. It could be bubbled up. And
Yeah. And who was the author again?
Catherine May.
Catherine May. With a C or a K?
With a K.
You can call me Katie though, too.
I can go next. So this book, so I had taken a class, so I every so often I need to recertify for bilingual instruction. And I have been taking some courses through CU Denver. And one of the courses I took was really delving into language and culture. And the book, we read the introduction in chapter 1 for one of our assignments. And I really want to go back and read the rest of it. It's called Con Respeto by Dr. Guadalupe Valdez. And it really goes into the culture of predominantly Mexican American, Chicano, or even first and second generation Mexican students, and how there's the disparity in U.S. schools really comes from teachers or even the school system as a whole, not really valuing the education, the culture, and what the students bring to the table. So it really challenges the reader to step outside their traditional mindset and really evaluate with a critical eye our school system as a whole, and how are we opening it, the way our norms, our cultural norms in the school setting, does it really lend itself to having students of other cultures really, thrive and really show what they know, and what we value as intelligence, or what we value as acceptable in the classroom, how other cultures maybe take a different mindset and a view, but it's really looking at it through the lens of Mexican American and that. And so that one really resonated with me just because of my history. My mom's first generation, and the Hidalgos have been here like the border crossed us, we didn't cross the border kind of thing. So we just kind of went with the flow. But how, you know, we always felt like we didn't really belong. You know, this wasn't, you know, we'd go home and we'd live a totally different lifestyle and culture than what, you know, we wore two different hats and two different, I guess, masks, I'd say. So I was very intrigued by that book, and so I do want to go back maybe next summer. When things slow down.
Well, I got a book for Christmas called The Red Tarot. I like tarot. I'm interested in it from different angles, and this book is about looking at the tarot through the lens of anti-racism, anti-oppression, how to kind of reclaim some of the traditions and reimagine them as tools for liberation. So I just thought that was such an interesting and niche topic. I put it on my wish list, and my husband chose it as my Christmas gift. So haven't gotten it to it yet, but I'm looking forward to digging into that. I am mostly nonfiction reader.
Who wrote that? Who's the author?
Not someone I'm familiar with.
Okay.
Christopher Marmolejo. Want to share anything, John or Tracy?
Sure, I can go next. I don't really have a specific one, but I'm hoping to get to this year, going back over several years ago, manuscripts of mine that I've written, my personal books, and this one in particular is a finished work, but a very, very rough draft. So just wanting to go back over that first draft of it and add all of the many, many notes that I have and try to kind of finish a final draft of that book. It's been several years since I actually wrote that first draft, so just looking back at that and the process and kind of the notes and things I have, I think will be really exciting for me. So,
Fiction or nonfiction?
it's fiction. I would say it's very heavily inspired by nonfiction, a lot of elements of nonfiction, but it is fiction.
Excuse me. I know. I always wait because I have to think about it. I don't know. You know, as usual, I cheat on these questions, and because I'm not. I don't know. I guess I'm not cheating. You didn't say to name just one. What you?
I said
Sometimes it's
open
one
for
thing.
interpretation.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything to look forward to. It's what I spend time on, which is usually it's nonfiction as well, and I tend to read a lot of kind of personal and work-related items on leadership, and so one of them that's on my book stand is a book, I can't remember the author, so those of you are going to ask, you're going to have to look it up, but it's called Inclusion on Purpose, and I heard about this author who was interviewed on a Brene Brown podcast, who is my hero these days, and it was really good, just about well, it's what it sounds like. Inclusion for staff. So, just, one of our, certainly an aspect of this year is, not just looking outward but inward with staff and supporting each other. So I thought that would be a good read. So that's what's next on my book stand, but that's going to be a theme probably, as it has been. Well, I don't know why I said that.
Thank you. I wrote those all down because I heard a lot of recommendations in there, so that was cool. Would anybody like to volunteer to bring an icebreaker for next month? I'd like to rotate.
I think I volunteered like a couple months ago. So let's do it.
You will do it. Okay.
writing this down.
I was like, February is my month. I'm like, November.
Thank you, thank you.
Right.
And so now we officially welcome our new board members. And I think most, if not all of us, have had a chance to speak with you during the interview process. So certainly not, asking you to repeat all of that, but want to extend just genuine enthusiasm and gratitude that you accepted the invitation to sit on this board, and would love to hear any thoughts or sentiments that you would like to share, things that you've been thinking about since the interviews, or just how you're feeling and thinking about this year ahead in this new role.
Before anyone starts to speak, this might be a good time to say, please, while we're welcoming you, that's why there's food.
yeah.
This is not normal. And,
Yeah.
and Tracy and Katie, I don't know, if you have a snack, you can join us for snack time. But please feel free to take something and pass around. And I don't want to interrupt anymore, but I just want to mention.
Yeah.
No, thank you, and maybe after we can even just take a minute or two
Yeah.
if people need to get up and actually reach.
Well, I'll go first. I did come to the November meeting, I think it was, just to see what it was like, because I thought, well, if I'm applying for something, I really should go and see what it's like and see if I like these people. And I was very impressed, particularly with the friends. And
Yeah, that was the
that
non-meeting,
was the
the
non-meeting.
October non-meeting.
Yeah, non-quorum, and the friends were there.
Right.
That was very interesting. And just looking at the minutes from the last meeting, there's a lot of talk about the strategic plan and the goals and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing the actual documents and, really,
Me too.
really getting into Is it your job to write them?
Oh, yeah.
In order to know, what the issues are and then, be able to contribute ideas.
Good.
So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I have just been, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to join. I've been really looking forward to this. And so two things. One, I guess I would say, I really feel like it's so important right now to be involved with, making contributions in any way we can. And I'm heartened when I look around and see there's all kinds of ways to do that and to take action, and I think this is one. Something that I started thinking about when I looked through the minutes is, we were talking about our selection criteria, and that got me thinking about book banning. And so in the last couple of days, it seems like I've seen articles popping up, and the ethicist in the New York Times was about, reverse book banning. We had a little free public library, and she said that there was some objectionable materials showing up in her little public library, or little free library, and was it okay to get rid of them? And so I had been doing several thoughtful concepts about, why we choose books, and why it's important, and who the audience is, and what the age is. And so I'm looking forward to kind of examining kind of how I feel about that, and thinking about that from the perspective of the youth. And I did hustle in and turn in my overdue library books on my way.
Thank you. We look forward to getting to know both of year as the conversation how to support the library continues. Feels like a good time at the start of the year to just have a refresher of a few things. It will be new information for our new board members, but for the rest of us, I consider it just a hygienic practice for us to remind ourselves the structure and the roles and sort of the framework in which we'll be working, and clarify, any points of confusion still hanging out or questions, so on. We do need to select a couple of roles on this board now that we have 5 members, with our previous vice chair stepping off, Kat, we have to elect a new vice chair for this year. And this was a conversation that was started several months ago, I think in the fall, but maybe over the summer. But I do want to get clear on the role of the liaison to the Friends of the Longmont Library moving forward. I am not going to be able to fill that role, so for Margaret and Charlene, I was the liaison to the Friends. Before I stepped into the chair role, I juggled both for a while. I'm not clear, Katie, on what your wish or intention was with the Friends in a formal sense, but I definitely am looking to officially pass that baton and just focus on one role from here on, so we can address both of those things tonight.
So my understanding
Yes.
was that we were looking to kind of streamline that role and make it more of a quarterly check-in, have them come every once in a while, have me go every once in a while, but kind of let them do their own thing and have their own space a little bit more. But
Okay.
if you're feeling like that needs to be a monthly check-in, then I am happy to let somebody else do that for sure. I don't have the capacity for that, but I also don't feel comfortable doing that as somebody who's not technically on their board. I'm more happy to go kind of as like a goodwill, keeping strong communications and relationships over, but I don't want them to feel like I have a heavy presence, and since they don't have a relationship with me like they do with you, that's how I would feel. And so if you want it to be more than every few months, I don't know that I would feel comfortable with that.
So this is great that we're bringing this up, right? Because we need to remind ourselves what these roles are and what they will look like moving forward this year. I don't have a strong feeling. The Friends Liaison is one role that is not super clearly defined. I think I was maybe a little bit more closely involved than is necessary or that previous liaisons were. Some of that was just out of personal interest. I don't think it's necessary, having gone to the monthly meetings for, I think, 2 years. I don't think it's necessary to be there every month. I think it's fine to attend every quarter or as invited even. I do think it is really in everyone's best interest to keep a regular connection with the Friends Board because our missions and our goals are so closely aligned. However, I don't think it needs to be monthly. So what the role basically is at its core is to be the conduit for information from the Friends Board, which is a nonprofit board, so they're not obligated to post minutes publicly or share that information out in a structured way beyond their own ranks. So having a liaison has been really helpful in just keeping this board apprised of any challenges, successes, volunteer opportunities, collaboration opportunities that we might be interested in. There is, I think, a willingness on all of our part on this advisory board to support the Friends as appropriate, as opportunities present themselves. So beyond that, it really is something that can be defined by the individual in that role. But keeping that communication, that line of communication open and fostering friendly, supportive relations with the Friends Board. Those are the main criteria. For the vice chair, there isn't really an ongoing expectation in terms of tasks or responsibilities. It is that backup person who, if the chair isn't able to attend a meeting or isn't able to represent the advisory board in some conversation or other capacity, the vice chair could step in and facilitate a meeting. Can the vice chair sign off on minutes in the absence of the chair?
Yes.
So it really is kind of a fill-in role. So in that sense, not really substantively more than what anyone on the board is doing currently. Unless I get my bus. So the way this works, that I understand, is we would invite nominations, either somebody else on this board that you think might be great for one or the other roles, or you could nominate yourself and say, I'm really interested in trying this out, and then we will vote. Does anyone have questions about either of those openings? So other than the chair, there really aren't any other formal titles on this board. We don't have a treasurer. Tracy serves as our secretary.
So how long did this last? Is it like an annual thing or until the person starts going?
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously highly unqualified to do either.
Yeah,
of
me
those
too.
things. But if it comes up in the future, after I know more and Shirley knows more, I'm sure we would love to throw it out. So maybe that would comfort somebody who wants to nominate themselves now, knowing that maybe it wouldn't be forever.
Katie, are you thinking of doing the Friends in the Library liaison?
I have to, but if that's something that interests you, Nicole, I would love for you to. That's up to you.
No, I mean I'm happy to do whatever helps. So I mean I can do either role. I have never been to a Friends of the Library meeting, so I'm happy to go to one either way. Either one.
It could be something that you and I also take turns on as well, if that's what you want.
Yeah, sure.
That might be a good. I don't have capacity right now for chair. Do we have to? Are we just re-nominating Jamie, or does she get to serve a full year term from when she was nominated in?
Yeah, so the chair position at this time is not open.
Okay,
because
okay,
I
good.
would be,
We're
unless
talking
there was
about
a reason vice chair?
You get a full chair, you get a full year regardless of when you were started. That's good. So this is vice chair and friends.
And friends is what we're voting on tonight.
Okay.
With the reminder that the friends role may be tailored to the person's needs.
All right, I nominate myself for whatever Katie does not want to do.
Oh my God.
Okay. Then I'm going to stay as friends, and I nominate you for vice chair.
Excellent.
I'll nominate myself for friends. You nominate yourself, or I'll nominate you for vice chair.
Perfect.
I'll second the nomination for the Friends Liaison. Let's handle that one first. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, congratulations, Katie. You'll let us know what rhythm you decide on. And I will put you in touch with Sharon, with the board chair for the Friends, to just confirm this decision.
Yeah, and I like the idea too of not just photobombing them, but coming on a day when they know I'm coming and that they're not discussing anything heavy or anything like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
If we can coordinate, I'd like to just go either the same day, if that's easiest for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or any other meeting in the future is also fine. But
All right, so
Yeah.
for Nicole
Maybe
as vice chair.
If Jamie introduces me, I can then keep you in the loop, Nicole, for that.
great, sounds good.
Anything else about the Friends role? We can follow up on details after the meeting. For Nicole as vice chair, nominated by Katie.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, congratulations, Nicole.
Thank you so much.
I have every confidence in you. Fantastic.
I'm gonna start with food.
Yes. Let's take a couple
Everybody's being
minutes
too
now
polite.
and celebrate our new officers / liaison with some food.
Yes.
Let's see, it's 7:35. Yeah. Just take 2 or 3 minutes and help yourself to a plate. Would you like some?
Do you want me to turn the recording off?
Whatever makes sense for you. Someone might want to see us eat. Out there. I hear this. Do I want sweet or savory? Both. Yes.
The answer is yes.
What kind of cheese is this?
It is garlic and chive, goat's cheese.
Oh, there we go.
Over that one.
So cute. Look at these napkins. Do you know what flavor those are?
Those are strawberry. They're like little Mexican cookies, but yeah, they're strawberry, like strawberry cream kind of.
Okay. Let's do it. Did you like anything all the way down there?
Oh,
My
it's
water.
Is that butter?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a dispenser. Yeah. Would you like me to use?
Yeah, just half a glass. Mouth gets really dry.
Yeah.
It's so cold. That's fine. Stop.
Uh-oh. That's like the library book check-in thing. When I went to check my books in, when I said done,
Oh,
so I had to go talk to Kim. I said, "Oh, it's cold."
Yeah, it should be tap once to turn it on and then.
I
There you go.
have no
Yeah.
had no effect on anything today.
It's not working right.
I think it's the 4th Wednesday. Yes.
And it's like
It's usually
like
the week
4:30 or
after
something,
us.
right? It's like the afternoon.
6th.
Oh, it is 6?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My husband just joined the library.
Well,
I'm sorry,
Wednesday?
the museum board.
Oh, cool.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
What's that, Katie? Sorry.
Is it 4th Wednesday? Is that right?
Correct.
4th Wednesday at 6.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of chairs.
That's better.
Did you set this all up? You else?
I did.
Did you set this all up? Or?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
And also signed my husband up as a person who has absolutely no time to volunteer, even active himself.
I'm pushing my husband toward the Friends as well because they could use some like physical support with moving stuff. He needs more to do.
Well, maybe because like he's really enjoying it, I'll be able to go back and say, you need to be more than just a figurehead member.
Absolutely. And they're working on broadening that, what membership means, what it involves.
Yeah, they sent a newsletter around that was sounded like a kind of reform, sounded kind of interesting.
It is an exciting time for them. It is like, it feels like they're a growth spurt in some ways. It is very exciting. They raise a lot of money for this library. And we're very grateful. Okay, so, now that everyone has their keys, continuing with sort of like the library refresher, I asked John to say a few things about the structure, governance, how the library is organized and how this board relates to it. Yeah, and then you can continue into your thoughts about planning forward,
Sure.
goals, landscape, challenges, stuff like that.
Okay. So, well, I'll start with the library itself, and I'm going to share on the screen, and that way Katie can see this too. So, make sure you can see that, Katie. So, just with the library, just to give you a sense of the structure of the library, how we function here. So I'm John, the director, and then I have, and I know that's how it goes. It's a little small, I know. You know, and I thought about just talking this through, and then I found that I have this org chart, so I figured it would be nice to have a visual, but. You know, so you don't need to worry about all the names really right now.
Really,
Yeah. So, you know, I have 6 direct reports. 4 of them are what we call department heads over certain functional areas of the library, right? So, Penny heads up our adult services, which is what we call it now. Back in the day, that would have been known as the reference department, but we kind of get away from that, at least in public libraries. We still do reference work traditionally, but there's a lot more that goes on there. So Penny heads up that. Julia heads up our circulation. So circulation is checkouts, returns, accounts. That's the staff that, you know, on any normal day, if you're in here getting holds, that's the staff you're interacting with most likely. They're all down here on the first floor at the desk, both desks, either that or the help desk. And this is a large staff. What you see on the org chart is just the library's full-time benefited. When you get here, particularly in circulation with part-time shelvers and pages, total library staff is about 73 people in total. Half of them work in circulation. And that's because there's just a lot to do. And in large part, they're part-time staff. And that's what we call shelvers and pages. Shelvers do just what you think they do, which is they come in and they shelve. Pages also shelve, but they also have an added responsibility of doing customer service at a desk, as well as materials retrieval for things that people place holds on. And so they go retrieve them. So that's kind of the difference there. And then you get into the full-time staff here. And every department has part-timers, which is represented at the bottom. Adult has 4 people generally. CERC, like I said, they probably have 25 to 30 part-timers in total. And then you get into tech services, library lingo there, for those of you not in library land normally. So that's, back of the office kind of operations with catalogers and acquisitions staff. That acquisition staff are responsible for both placing and receiving orders of new materials. So there's a lot of just system and technical work there. All of them also have a responsibility about 20 hours a week or so working on the public desk. So it's not all backroom. Some of them are on the public desk, some of them are up in the computer lab. It just depends on their role and what they're doing. And then we have some part-time in tech services. 2 of them specifically only work in the computer lab as computer lab assistants. 20 hours a week each to help staff the lab upstairs, and they also help with classes that we teach and things like that as needed. And then when you get into children and teen services, so Claire heads that department. Obviously in public libraries, that's a very important aspect, right? With early childhood literacy, everything that goes along with children and youth. And so this is the staff under Claire, and they have some part-time people there. And they all do a variety of things. Some are more specialized, like the first person listed here, Becca, is officially our teen librarian. So she really just focuses on teen services and collections. And so some things are divided up that way. Kate is our bilingual children librarian, so she does bilingual story time and other aspects and is fully fluent in Spanish, so that helps with the children's department. There's other Spanish speakers, but that's her actual role, is to be the bilingual children's librarian. And then we get into the non-department heads, also reporting to me. So Lillian is our outreach coordinator. Officially, the official title of her role is Bilingual Services Outreach Coordinator. That's how it was created at the time. It's one of our newer positions. It was created before I was here. I've been here 2 years. It was created about 3 years or so ago that she's been here for outreach into the community, particularly for Spanish-speaking population in Longmont. So she is a native Spanish speaker from Mexico and connects with that community and is just doing outstanding work, which I'm going to show you a little bit in the agenda as far as what she did in 2024 to give you a sense of outreach and the amount of connections that she makes in the community.
Is she the one that does they come to the senior center?
Yep.
Is that like once a month or something?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's her, and sometimes it's other.
Yeah.
She has staff that come forward. So she
Yeah.
coordinates. She's at many or most things, and then sometimes she has staff come. I can get into this a little bit more, but Lillian is a team of 1 currently. She should probably have a team of at least 4 or 5 people, but she's 1. We do have a 20-hour position, someone that was reporting to her, and that person resigned. So when Lillian is currently out of the office, but when she's back, we'll repost that and get her some of that part-time help again. But it takes everybody to help contribute to outreach and be out there in the community. It takes a lot of work and time, but it's very worthwhile. Very worthwhile. So, and then we have our security team. The library has their own security presence. So Jake is our what we call campus supervisor. And by the way, the campus. The reason it's called campus is while the library is their primary responsibility, They do respond as needed to other areas in the city if they need a city security presence. That can be handled by them if they are available. But it doesn't happen too much, but technically that's their role. And he has a full-time person under him who is largely at the Memorial Building and Roosevelt Park. And then he works here every Sunday, and then as needed. And then we have a part-time that works at night. Sherry's here tonight. She supports the library at night and on Saturdays. So very helpful to have our own security presence. And then last but not least is Tracy, who really runs the library. And so that's the team of the library. And just to give you that quick overview, I mean, somewhat quick. I'm never quick about anything.
So where does, because I volunteered for the Homebound program with Jana,
Yes.
where does she fall under? Is she in adult services? Or?
Yeah, so Jana, who you're talking about, is right
Oh,
here.
okay.
Jana Kopp. She is one of our librarians in adult services. And they all divvy up roles, right?
Yeah.
And so Jana is new to that. The person that was in charge of our Homebound left almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Jana took that on. And that's a huge and important service and a lot of work. And Jana is phenomenal at that, as was Devin before her. But yeah.
And Debbie before.
And that.
I started with Debbie.
Yeah. So that's basically the library team. I mean, I always can talk about that and different roles if you have questions about that. And then what's not represented here is the library is a part of. So the library department is a part of the Recreation and Culture Division, right? So I report to Jeff Friesner, who is the Director of Recreation and Culture, which includes Recreation, Museum, and Library, and very soon to be Parks as well. He's taking on Parks as well. It's going to be over.
Aren't you going Parks, or is he just going to be interim until they hire somebody?
No, they're folding Parks into Rec, which is generally how most municipalities work. Parks and Rec. Yeah, just like the show. And so,
Here's our show.
hopefully we don't function exactly like that. But so at one point in Longmont, it was Parks and Rec, and then that got split out, and they made it Parks and Open Space. And so this is still kind of in progress, but so that's going to fold back in. Jeff was doing this before anyway, and so it makes a lot of sense from the recreation standpoint, just because Parks and Rec are very integrated, not just because it sounds nice together, but when you have Rec in all the athletic fields, those are Parks' responsibilities, but there's so much coordination that it makes sense to be in one department. It makes it a little bit large, but we'll see how that goes. Jeff's a veteran here in Longmont and has been doing this for many years, so I don't see any impact on the library, but we'll have an addition of that, which might be good because oddly enough, Parks is also responsible for things like cleaning up parking garages and parking lots. And so now I can, instead of me having to get a Parks person to sweep up leaves in our garage, I can just tell my boss that you need to call them because that's his staff.
Yeah.
So it's Parks and Rec and Culture.
So I don't know if it'll rename. So right now it's called Recreation and Culture. I don't know if it's going to be like Parks, Rec, and Culture. I don't know. This is fairly new, but I just thought I could really represent where the library lives within that. And so there you have it. So I'm going to stop. That was really the only thing I had to share on that aspect.
So stating the obvious, because I've never been involved with a library that was part of a city structure before Longmont. So as part of that city structure, functions like marketing and communications, accounting, facilities and maintenance, those are all, the library uses the city's
Correct.
resources, that doesn't maintain its own staffing for those functions.
Correct. That's a good point. So, yeah, and this is generally how municipalities would work. I mean, if you're a library district, that's going to be different. It's how you're governed, right? So if you're a district, you're your own entity, so you'll have your own HR, IT, everything, facilities. As a city, we share resources, and so the library uses the city HR and the city communications team and the city IT. Now we have library expertise on staff because a lot of the library systems and software are so unique that we need to have our own expertise on that. But we still, speak with, in the city it's not called IT, this still drives me crazy, it's called ETS, which stands for Enterprise Technology Services rather than Information Technology. I guess that's fancy. But same thing. And so, but like for networking and our network connection, all that stuff is all through ETS, so we don't have to manage any of that.
Accounts payable.
And then finance,
Yeah,
same
that's what I was
thing.
gonna ask about.
Yeah, so budgeting and finance. So yeah, the city has a centralized accounting, finance team, budgeting, all that stuff is centralized. So they and the team there divides up their responsibilities, right? So there's a couple or so people that really focus on budgeting and finance and accounting for recreation and culture. Other people have very different departments, probably in like public safety, like police and fire have their own. That's a whole different thing, right? So, but it's still all within finance.
Where are you in terms of capacity? I mean, do you have a lot of open positions? You mentioned a couple.
For the library specifically? Right now, we have, I think there's a couple or so part-time positions open. That's the norm when it comes to part-time, and with so many part-timers. Although this library, in comparison to places I've worked at, has much less turnover, and particularly for full-time staff. So it's rare that happens. We just filled 2 full-time staff from 2 people. Sorry, we filled 2 positions, both from 2 people that decided to retire at the end of the year. Otherwise, it's not often that happens. Good question. So yeah, and then in like facilities too, right? So we rely on facilities for library matters that require that. So and that's how a lot of city departments work, right? So if we have an issue here, there's a phone number or a ticketing system I would use to get support, whether it's IT, finance, whatever, or I know who to contact, who has oversight of the library specifically.
I think it's helpful to understand what is immediately within your purview or influence and what you have to reach out to the city.
Yeah. So like, it's kind of like, it would depend on what it is.
Yeah.
So, but using finance and budgeting is a thing. So I have full oversight and responsibility of the budget, but if I need support or questions answered, which is often, I need my hand held a lot, but that's why they're there. So if I need to run a report or do something, Tracy helps tremendously with this when it comes to budgeting on some level, but like purchasing a lot. So purchase orders, requisitions, it gets, government never makes that easy to buy anything. Actually, it's pretty good here, I have to say, because in comparison to other places I've worked, a lot of staff who have a responsibility that would warrant it have purchasing cards, and as long as a vendor you're working with can take a purchasing card, it makes life so much easier than going through a formal process within the city's accounting system to create purchase orders and things like that. But that's my support between Tracy and finance. Decision making would be mine or my boss. So thank you for bringing that up. Well, I didn't think about that. And are there any other questions on that structure or staffing before I come?
How much more staff do you usually
So I've been here 2 years, and in each budgeting cycle I've been through, I have asked for. So, for example, with outreach, I think in that itself, I've asked for 2 full-time staff, and the way part-time staff works here is it's not really per position, it's sort of a dollar amount, and then you hire however that's going to work, so 10 hours a week or 15, whatever you want. That would amount to, in my mind, 2 full-time staff and probably 4 to 6 part-time people just within outreach. And then if you get into other areas, circulation needs more. I mean, we're talking. I'd have to look back in what I've requested, but it still stays the same. What that final number is.
Are you able to move positions around? Like, I don't know how this works in like a government structure like this. Like, if you needed more people in outreach, could you, and somebody retired in circulation?
Absolutely.
You're able to move that count. Okay.
Yeah, that can happen. And in some cases, it sort of has happened. In fact, that's how outreach got a part-time position.
Okay.
So that wasn't new. Lily, I keep saying Lily because that's her name, but outreach was always a team of 1. The way I got a 20-hour position was within tech services, different department. They had a 20-hour position that department head agreed that it wasn't needed anymore, and he could give that position up based off need, and so that's how I was able to get that. So that definitely has and can happen. It's also not a viable solution in all cases.
Right.
You still need to add. We have space considerations. I mean, we need more staff, but we really don't know where to put people if we were to get that. In some ways, that's there because of the size of Longmont and the staffing level we should have for a city this size. But where they go, where they should go is in other outlets in the city. So it's a lot of things at once. Yeah. Other questions on staffing or? You don't have to have them all tonight.
No, but it's interesting.
So when you're hiring, basically, the process is within the library?
Yeah.
But then you have to go through HR to actually get them on board?
It's both. It's both. Yeah. I mean, HR manages, like posting the jobs.
Yeah.
Some of that administrative work, but
you do the interview.
Oh yeah.
And do you do it? Do you have like a committee of some of the other staff, or do you just do it yourself? Or not?
No, it would be within the department within the library. So if children's is hiring a new position, that department head and any staff that she wants to have participate in interviews would do it. It would never be just one person. At least 2. I've certainly participated in interviews where staff want me to, which I often do when we have professional staff generally, like librarian positions. I will help interview with those, which hasn't happened too much, but it's handled within the department, within the library. And HR support is really just administratively Atkins. We do the posting, we create the questions, the interview questions, we do the reference checks, we do it all. They post it, and then when we have candidates, they process new employees and do that end of it. We do some of our own onboarding as well, internally when they come on board. HR has a role, and then we do our own onboarding. So let me, the other thing I want to talk about when we talk about overview and structure is the role of the board itself. which you may know, but like Jamie said, it's worth a refresher. And maybe if you're familiar with other structures of other governing boards. So here in the city, the library board, and there's many others in the city that are advisory board in nature. So there's not a decision-making capacity. There's actually very few in the city. I think there's a couple commissions that are in like planning and zoning is a decision-making board, right? This is advisory. So what does that mean? It means that you represent Longmont on library matters and advise council on library matters. Not necessarily the library, but council. So based off our discussions and what that can look like, I mean, the best example, a real example would be back when we were leading up to an election, but even before that, and going through the thank you. I wanted to say some
Wild
F word, but it
guess.
wasn't
Yeah.
feasible. Let's leave that out of the discussion. So it was the feasibility study, and then sort of, helping communicate to council, like, okay, this is what it means, this is what it should mean for the library. So that's what advisory boards do, is advise council, and whatever that means. That can be here, when we have our liaison here, or at city council meetings, oftentimes through public invited to be heard, or other means through writing letters or emails to council on behalf of the library. So, in general, that's what it is. Do you have anything as the chair to add to that?
Well, I've also experienced on this board sort of that two-way street of we represent the residents of Longmont and we're advising council on behalf of Longmont residents. And if we have an understanding or we have information, knowledge that we believe maybe the Longmont residents don't all have or all share. There's that community engagement piece that I think is really important and maybe even ripe for expanding in making sure that Longmont residents understand the role and the influence that they have on the future of their library. And these are the channels through which Longmont residents can make their voices heard, can communicate surely through us as an advisory board. I mean, we have the public invited to be heard on every agenda. And in 2 years, I've not had anyone come to a meeting. So if there are residents who want to speak up and express thoughts about the direction of the library, right? So not operational, I think this book should be taken off the shelf, or I think the library really needs extra seating, chairs and tables in this area. Like, that is not really our realm, but in terms of the future, the budgeting, that sort of higher level stuff, it might be good to remind the public that we are a vehicle for receiving those comments as well. Or we could advise residents on, hey, there's a council meeting coming up and we're looking for more members of the public to come and give comment on this topic or that topic. And I'm thinking way back to when I first got involved with this board, and there was a call to have folks show up at a council meeting to, I think,
give testimony, or not testimony, but like to make a comments around the feasibility study, or
Correct.
where the feasibility study was.
Yeah.
At that
That was
time.
one aspect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So other things that I do as the director to bring here, anytime that library staff either create a new or update policies that we have, I always bring it to the board. And it's the most formal it gets is for the board to look at it and generally make a motion that it's the board has read it and basically accepts it. There's on a technical level, there's no requirement that I do that, but since everyone here is representing the city, I think it's good to bring those things forward so that the board's aware, and if there's actual questions or concerns on it, I will do that before. Then my process then is then to send it to the city attorney's office, one of the other departments I work with on that, to read through and make sure everything checks off from a legal perspective before we post a new policy or update it. Some updates are fairly minor, but anytime I do that, I'll bring things like that. And this kind of gets into, well, this is B, I guess I can go into that. Things like strategic planning. So I'll talk a little bit about that, particularly for both of you that are new. So we, as library staff, well, let me even back up before that. So, like I mentioned, I'm here just over 2 years. There has not been that I could find any kind of strategic plan that was in place for a number of years. And, it's certainly beneficial to have those things in place, give, some direction and things like that. So I think an ideal way to proceed with a strategic plan, would be to do community focus groups and things like that, and really develop it that way. But, that really not being an option for us, we did it a little bit differently, starting out with an all-day retreat that I kind of have a leadership team here that is, when you saw the structure, it's all the direct reports that you saw, and then there's some other people that are in leadership roles here. Some of them may not be supervisory, which doesn't matter, but they're and so we spent a day with one of our assistant city managers who has a background in strategic planning, and did a retreat and kind of came up with overarching goals or themes that we want to kind of give ourselves some direction with. And I don't want to say there's not community input. It's certainly a lot of that's based off the work we do every day, and what are we hearing from the public, and what do we think the priorities are. But some of what's in the plan is figuring out some of those priorities as well. I mean, we think we know, but some of that will be through like demographic kind of things where we get, what are interests of certain areas in town, and what are their likes, what are their dislikes, how do they use the library or not use the library, which will help inform a little bit of that. And so we did that retreat back in September. And since then, I've been working with my direct reports on really constructing what that plan is based off those themes. And all staff, I should say, had input. So at the end of that day, we literally had, let me digress again. Jamie represented the board on that retreat day. So the library board was there in representation too. So that was sort of also a way to have community input. The themes informed like 5 or 6 different boards of themes, right? And so those themes were things like programming, collections, literacy. I'm trying to think of them all. I should know it, but anyway, it's a little fuzzy. And so then we set up a room for all the other staff who couldn't be there, right? I can't bring all 75 people here, and And so,
And you'd have to close the library.
yeah, and also that would be probably too many people to be effective for an activity like that. So we gave the rest of the staff a couple weeks to come in and look at these boards. I gave them a lot of background of how they were developed, and then they had an opportunity to basically write on them or make sticky notes, like what's missing, what do you think, or what's here that you don't think is relevant. And so we got a lot of good feedback there, which helped inform it. In fact, literacy being one of the overarching themes was not a theme that came out of the day of the retreat. But through staff feedback and conversations with my direct reports and other leaders in the library, I realized that really should be a theme, and not just childhood literacy, right? Literacy across the board. So, that's how things have morphed. And so we're at a point now where what has been completed is a new mission statement and a vision statement and core values, which I shared last month, I think, or the month before, and you can certainly go back to minutes and see, because that was part of the packet, or was it? If not, I'll share them again. We're not done talking about that here, by the way.
Yeah.
And so,
because it was just mentioned.
I think I shared it here.
Was no detail.
Yeah, and now that as I was talking, I realized I didn't put it in the packet, but in part because I just wanted to have it be a conversation, because in case it's not finalized. But I'll make sure that we're going to talk about it more. Tonight's not really one of the nights, because since the last time when we kind of finalized the mission, vision, and core values, right now we're working through details of the plan. I would say probably by the time we meet in February here, because especially since we'll have an added week because of the holiday, I'm hopeful that I'll be able to bring in at least some kind of draft here for the board to have a chance to review, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. There'll be plenty of time for that. But I'm excited about this, and I think staff are too, because what are we doing? I mean, we're good at what we do. Some of it is we're good at what we do and we don't tell anyone we're doing it. That's part of what's in the plan, actually. It's like we need to tell people that we should be really thought of for literacy. And I'm not sure that that's there. So there's a lot of advocacy. That's probably the biggest theme in general. Anything I could talk about is advocacy. So that's kind of where the strategic plan lies. You'll certainly learn more. I know that's a little bit vague right now, but there'll be more to come to this board with that as we get through things. So that's kind of my update on our business, Jim.
So what I heard throughout this portion of the agenda, both in you discussing the overarching structure and some of the progress with a strategic plan and revitalizing that process of having a strategic plan. And then in the questions that I heard brought up, there's this theme of need. What are the needs? How are the needs being addressed? How are the needs being prioritized? How are the needs being funded? So I am thinking about I don't know how to describe it. I think a developing action plan. So based on sort of this 3 to 5 year strategy,
that'll be a
5-year plan that staff have been working on. I imagine that staff and you're having to keep moving all the time. You don't get to hit pause and say, okay, how are we going to work with these themes? How are you kind of pulling in some of the maybe most urgent, or what are those emerging needs that you feel can be addressed in 2025?
So that's what we're talking about as we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's becoming apparent, and I bring this to the attention of my department heads as we've been talking through this. Like, the plan is, the strategic plan itself is fairly high level, and from my perspective, that's intentional. There's a no shortage of ways to approach a strategic plan, right? I mean, you can have like year one, we're going to do this. Well, I don't want to do that. This is the 5-year plan, and the reason is there might be something that changes where something that I might think is 5 years out, I can do now.
Mm-hmm.
So why do I wait, right? So it needs to be flexible enough to do that. And I think Jamie will inform, and what I keep telling my department heads is, as we talk through this, you need to think about, at a more specific level, how does this inform your goals for this year?
Right.
So, if it's in the case of literacy, what does that mean? And like an example of that is in the adult services area, and it's already happening. I mean, they're already planning more adult literacy type things. We have a brand new language course that's already developed that just so happens to fit nicely within the plan.
Right.
So that's a very specific thing, like add more language learning. Done. We can check that off. So they'll have to kind of figure that out within their departments, and I think as the high level is getting developed, they can kind of see, well, what do we want to do this year?
Right.
Is that the 1,000 words thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah.
And then how does that tie into your budget? I mean, obviously, if you come up with new things to do, is it just more of a tool to support future budget requests?
In part it is. In part it is. I mean, the way that the plan's getting structured is you have like a theme like literacy, and then a key objective, and then under that is what do we need to do, what needs to happen, and what outcomes do we expect to see. Those are that's kind of how the structure of the plan will work. And a lot of times in what needs to happen is things like we need an added position of a early literacy librarian, right? Like if early literacy is a focus here, we don't have the capacity to do it at that level. So there's going to be, again, advocacy and a lot of push towards, these are our goals, but we need the funding to do this.
But like meanwhile, if you're talking about some of the adult programming, you've already got adult programming, and you're just shifting the focus
Exactly.
of the existing.
And so it helps, and that's a huge thing, right, is this helps us prioritize.
Yeah.
So, because currently, I have wonderful creative staff, but there's really not really any way we know what programs are valuable or not. Some of that is going to come through really paying the community and trying to learn through what people want to do.
And do
what kind of program?
Do you have anything in place already for how you're getting this information from the community, or is that coming with the plan?
It's also in the plan. But the resources are there. So one of the city managers, within the city manager's office is a department called Strategic Initiatives. And that's like a data house. And it's in the plan. So when I talk about department goals, so administration, my department, that's going to be, we need to dig into this data and really learn specific areas, neighborhoods within Longmont, who's using the library or not, and what are their interests outside of the library, and really help inform what kind of programs that we might want to try, or what we should be doing, and how do we get out in the community and deliver that as well.
Do they collect, or do you collect, or does anybody collect data about library patrons checking things out? Because I know there's a problem with privacy and that kind of stuff, and there was a while back when we now get rid of checkout records so that the FBI can't.
That's still a thing.
I know it's still a thing.
Yeah.
But is there a way of collecting data without connecting it to specific people, where you could tell people who have gotten library cards come from these various neighborhoods or areas?
Yes.
That would be very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm
That's the
talking
kind
about.
of thing that I get. Okay.
yeah, it's, you know, in part, some of that's like market segmentation kind of things,
Yeah.
right? Where you
Yeah.
even look at people's purchasing habits, you know, to help you kind of like, well, this is, you know, whatever it might be, you know, this little pocket of town has, no one has a library card, yet they're all interested in baking bread. I don't know, you know, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
it could be anything. It's like, well, let's figure that out, you know.
Yeah.
What languages do they speak in this neighborhood? You know, I mean, that's maybe why they're not using the library, because we're not speaking to them. So, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Cool.
So are you able to speak to any of these sort of emergent priorities? Like what feels most relevant to this board in terms of advocacy and support? Are there any things that you can pick out of that, you know, those polls for the year, like that this board would be most relevant for this year?
I think it's going to be it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't choose that. I mean, one thing I could say, and in part, one of the reasons literacy became, which seems obvious, you know, now that I think about it, but part of what informed that was actually was city council priorities that they set a couple of years ago, which one of them is early childhood education. And it's been there, and it's like, you know, we looked inward and we're like, wait a minute, we're already doing this. And so I think, you know, helping share and teach people like this, the library is doing this and this is how. And this, and you know, my ultimate goal with something like that is when people think literacy, they think of the library first. Other places are fine, and it's not to take away, obviously schools are teaching literacy, but I mean, but when you think of a city, you know, they need to think of the library.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a combination of what we're already doing and the new things that we will do.
And letting people know about it.
And yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
And that's definitely where I see library board. Advising council on
Right.
and the city on those matters, and this is what the library is doing, and this is why it matters.
Right.
This is kind of my question is, you know, since I've been on the board, which isn't that long, I mean, even with our conversations with Susie, like, I don't know if we've advised council on much, if anything, since they've joined. Like, I'm curious, I mean, that's their main role. What have we been missing for the past, 6 months that we should have been advising council on? And what are we doing this year that's going to change that?
I think a big thing, were you done?
Yeah, I'm just going to
Okay.
continue battling, so go please.
So I think that the big thing was when the advisory board came to city council to encourage us to put on the ballot the ballot measure for the library. That was, that you all had written a resolution, people came in public comment. So, and then there were also, I feel like there were emails as well that came out. So I think that, if there's a big topic, I think, I'm trying to go back. Let's see. Some other things, is really encouraging council. Like, hey, these are the needs. And then it was so interesting to hear when not long after I had been on started on this board, that people on council were saying, well, I didn't know that the library had a financial. And I'm like, really? Yeah, y'all gotta listen. But so I think, there's a dual part in my role as liaison to make sure that council does know these are the issues that they're talking about in their in their action plan. This is what we want to see. And then your role is, keep doing the resolutions, coming and speaking to in public comment, those emails as well. I think that.
And I would say some of it happens here.
Yeah.
I mean, like right now, Susie's here, our liaison. So in part, it's just these conversations, this meeting, and when we talk about what's important to the library, we're advising council right now.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to always be in a formal email or communication to council, but it can be, and it has been.
What I remember, going to council meetings in person, since I've been involved, it started with the feasibility study and attending those meetings where members of this board were advising council what to do with those results, how those results, all that information might be digested, or which recommendations felt most pertinent at that time because of feasibility study that took
That
a
was
very
good,
long
yeah.
time. And by the time results were presented, things had already changed and evolved in different ways. And so there were members of this board who were saying, we think right now council should go this way with the results. Members of this board gave input on budget recommendations, when there's not enough to go around, going to council meetings and advocating for, please fully fund this library, or please fully fund John's request, if at all possible. The ballot measures and resolutions around, the election, that was another big thing. This board went and presented information from the library's annual report in the hopes of that data supporting increased budgets, or more consideration for the budget requests that John was bringing. I wonder if there's anything to discuss about this combining of departments, if there's any potential ramifications or concerns for the library in combining with Parks and Rec and this and that. Like, is there increased feelings either for you or staff that the library might get lost in the shuffle a little bit?
Because Parks and Rec are so big.
Or fall down the
Yeah, so
ladder?
I mean, I don't mind responding to that on record here. I think, and I've spoken with my boss about that, and the assistant city manager that oversees what we call external services, which is recreation and culture plus other departments that she has oversight of. And even outside of like adding to the department, I think a case could be made, and at one point it was the case, where the library was its own independent division.
Here in Longmont? Really?
I
It had
think.
been?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I could be making that up, but certainly other places I've been in, that is the case.
Right.
If you think about the number of staff that I have here, the size of the building, the potential and the need for growth, I think, as you put it, lost in the shuffle could be something that I don't want to see happen. And so I kind of have made a point about that it might be something that should be considered, as the department grows. Because as you say, Parks, or whoever said it, Parks and Rec alone is huge.
Right.
And I also would say too, as one of my, very overarching themes to everything I do here is trying to get everyone to see and believe what I believe, which is the library is an essential service.
Yeah.
And if we're in an essential service, then we don't want to be folded in these other things. And it's not to take away, there's essential needs in every department, right? Recreation is about wellness, right? I mean, I'm not taking away from that, but I think my constant, sort of fight
Right.
is, I want the world to see the library as essential as I know we are,
Right.
and not as an add-on, a value add-on. And when you kind of fold us into this kind of culture, recreation and culture, everything has an essential need. But what I know here in my industry, as I see people come in, for example, they come up, this again gets back to literacy, they come to our computer lab,
Right.
they need a job, and we start from zero. Here's the mouse,
Yeah.
let's get you an email account, and then they have a job. That's essential. That's essential to Longmont. It helps, I could argue it's a public safety aspect,
Public safety.
because the more educated and employed people are, the less crime there is.
Workforce.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of, that's like, everything that I talk about, that's what's behind it.
Right.
And so when you ask about departments, I think probably at some point, and I wouldn't mind it if it was sooner rather than later, I think the library should be its own division.
Well,
It's
It's
big enough.
also the only public service of that group that is free.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I was
Anybody
just
can walk
about
in.
to
I
say.
mean,
And that's
even if you go
another
to
important
Rexford,
aspect.
it's
Yeah.
on a
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
you know?
And that's my concern, Barbara. Like,
Sure.
I'm sorry. Oh my
okay, I
God.
did it.
Charlene, Barbara. I did that before earlier. You didn't
Yeah.
correct me. So it's really your fault.
Oh,
No,
okay, sorry.
I'm so sorry. Charlene, Barbara. Okay. My concern, right? I have a big family. I've got 5 kids. And 4 of them have a job. And they're bringing in their own income. And the 5th one does not. So in terms of like distributing resources, attention, etc., it's not even. It's not, it doesn't feel like a fair spread, because we're the only entity, not only are we the only entity that is complete, well, parks are free to go to a
Well,
park.
yeah,
Yes.
outside, yeah.
So the
Yeah,
library is
activities.
free to use, but it's also not a revenue, like,
Yeah.
generating. We don't charge memberships. We don't have, like, other than the friends of the library who are volunteer,
Yeah.
we don't have a structure baked in that that funds the library at a significant level.
No, there's a difference there, because in recreation, I mean, there's a requirement. I mean, their budget requires a certain percentage of revenue. They have to.
I'm sorry, say that again
okay.
so I understand.
Well, I'm just saying that there's a requirement when you're in recreation specifically that you have to generate a certain amount of revenue
Mm-hmm.
as a part of your budget that I don't have. So that's why,
Right.
like you say, there's
Yeah.
charged services, whether it's rec use or memberships or whatever. And, in and of itself, I mean, I think it's a factor. But even as I say this, as the current department, we talk a lot about collaborative efforts and what does that look like, that could really benefit residents. So I don't want to see that go away either.
Right.
But it's, when you get into charged services versus not.
Well, and it's also,
it kind of goes to-
read articles about this, from kind of the, just based on public spaces. It's an open public space where anyone in the community can come. And that's very rare, where you don't have to pay.
There's no expectation of spending money.
Yeah. And so then, and you have the spaces where groups of people can meet, you have spaces for individual people,
Right.
and that's a huge part of, what we think a city should provide for
Right.
its citizens.
Could you really, I'm sorry, when you're talking about the feasibility study, could you explain what you're talking about?
Yeah, so this goes back a number of years before I was here, and the library is being talked about as being very underfunded, and while other departments were increasing in funding, and so is eventually got the attention of the city manager's office, and it turned into hiring a consultant to do a feasibility study to see where the library is and what's needed. And so unfortunately, this was started right before COVID. It took a long time. That got interrupted. The initial consultant stopped doing the work. They had to bring in a new one to pick up the pieces and complete it. So it took a long time. But I think it showed, it would have shown the same results. And a lot of it is, comparables to other libraries, and things we knew about Longmont. So for example, when this existing building was completed in the early 90s, the population of Longmont was just over 50,000 people. And the expectation was this is a big enough library and staffed well enough to accommodate a population of up to 65,000 people. And you see where we are now. And so a lot of what that study showed is you've well outgrown your space and your staffing. So you need to grow in both ways. And so it kind of laid out, and it's something I will make sure you can get to it, but that's not always easy to find. I'll make sure I get you the feasibility study itself.
Is the council receptive to that?
Yep, and so what it was, at the end of the day, what happened is that consultant presented the final results of the study to council. There was an official acceptance of this feasibility study, meaning council accepts that, we agree, or whatever that is, and that study, I think, itself informed leading into the election of we need a new library and more staff. Even though the results of that didn't happen, a lot of that was because of the feasibility study showing the need.
And is some of that then transferred over part of your initiative, your goal setting you're doing now?
Yes, yeah, in part.
Your action.
Yeah, 'cause the feasibility was much more about funding, staffing, space, not so much strategic initiatives. That's really on us, but but some of that does inform it. When you think about growth, and some of this will be reflected in the plan, which is having library services elsewhere, and what does that look like, and how do we get to the point? The election called for a very large $35 million library, and I would say, well, lovely, but really we could do this in different ways, with much less impact on citizens to pay for, in that financially, but high impact on residents, which is maybe small outlets or even just self-service kind of options to start to grow the library that way, which would, I think, build advocacy and people seeing wait a minute, now the library's in my neighborhood in some form.
Right.
So it's that certainly the study informed some of that thinking.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things that came out of that feasibility study was that it put some data behind whether or not the library truly is underfunded, and by how much, and what does it mean to be fully funded, and what could that look like. So there'd been a lot of discussion, many library advocates saying we need more, we need better, and this study aimed to substantiate a lot of that. So once that was presented, and there were sort of different tiers, this is what this much might get you, that's when that kind of led into the ballot measure. But there was still this conversation of, okay, so how do we decide how the library is funded and who's funding it? Is it up to council to allocate funds? Is it up to voters to designate tax money? How those needs, once legitimized and acknowledged formally, how those needs get addressed. Now that's the big question, right, that hasn't been fully resolved yet.
Well, because it sounds like both attempts, the attempts in both directions so far have not been successful, right? The ballot measure failed, and the budget from last year, we didn't get any of the tier 2 funding or whatever. So,
But certainly when I had my interview with the city council, I mean, they were mentioning a lot of these very issues you are talking about, neighborhoods, communications, and all of those things. So it's in there somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think that philosophically there's buy-in for the library. That's just different than
Money.
you need it.
Yes.
I mean, you definitely need it, and I'm grateful. Like, the city council fully philosophically supports the library and would love to see more. And I think if you ask, it's always the problem in public library land is everyone loves the library. If you survey everybody in town, you'll get a 99%. I love the library. If the next question is what's it worth to you, it's probably less than you want, and maybe zero. Right,
Kind of like teachers.
Yeah, I know. It's
No, but
libraries and education, right?
There were just a lot of,
Yeah.
they were talking about some of your specific issues, not just we love the library, but they're about neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And what else you could do if you can have a branch library and things like that. So certainly, somewhere, the concept is, it's not just it's for the library. There's a wish for intentional building on.
Yeah, and I think that's happened through my own internal conversations, but that's I think has also come through from library board advocacy.
Yeah.
And that's why you're hearing council or whoever you talk to, council probably.
Yeah.
That's where that's coming from.
Yeah. So, they're aware of it now.
Yes.
More specifics
Yes.
down on a more specific level than just,
Yeah.
So you just need to write a plan.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the sooner the better. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost done.
This has been incredibly helpful.
I would like to propose that we move into the reports.
I was going to say, in the interest of time. And the main thing, actually, I think the only thing I was going to really talk about, which I mentioned before, was sharing with you outreach, which I can do quickly. I think I'll try to be quick. This does involve a share here, but so that you can look at something on the screen. So, one of the things Lily is really good about is capturing. Sorry, that's the end of the slide. What's gone on in outreach in the year of 2024. Just to kind of show you, she does a great job at capturing this, but just I'm going to be pretty quick about this, but these are all the events, some of the major events that happened in the year. Lily doesn't do all this alone. A lot of library staff, we have to really coordinate to get support for her to do some of these events, which internally involves a lot of rescheduling and people changing up their schedules or coming in for a day where they don't work. So there's a lot that goes on here to make these things happen. The numbers there are basically what we count as some type of interaction or connection with somebody. So something like Cinco de Mayo, which is a pretty big festival, as long as someone comes up and talks to us, we basically just kind of count that as a conversation. If someone walks by and just waves at us like, "Hi, we love the library," we're probably not going to count that. I mean, we love it, but we're not really educating on the library. So, yeah, giving you that context, I think it's important to say, because you look at something like Cinco. I mean, 600 people is a lot of people to talk to. but that's the kind of stuff that goes on when we're out in the community. Parent and family events. We some of the bigger things we do is PI, Parents Involved in Education. We're at it's a recurring thing where there's these meetings, and then Lily and our staff will take the children of those families and do programming for them when the parents have a meeting. That's one big thing. We do a lot of school activities. Something that's not really represented here is classroom visits that the children's staff do, in large part, not so much Lily herself. That's the children's staff that go and coordinate with teachers to do classroom visits and teach about the library. So there's that. This is there's a lot of information on here. This is how to not do a PowerPoint slide. But I love Lily. There's too much on here, but there's just different things I already mentioned. Some of the things like going to the parks, some of that's changing in 2025. We're kind of reshifting. One of them is the 1,000 words, to put efforts into that. That's been developed by doing outreach. So one of the places Lily has gone to ever since I've been here is she goes to a couple of the Mexican grocery stores, and she just stands out there and talks to people. And then now she's getting them to come in. That's the whole goal of what she does. And a lot of them have shared with her specifically that their English, they want to learn English better than they are learning it. So that's how she created that program. We have other language programs here, but they're much more casual and conversational in nature, and there's not really a specific skill set. So the 1,000 words is very much like, I don't know English. And so she created that totally based off her experience in being out there.
I'm sorry, just really quickly. Did you say that the park events are not happening in 2025?
Correct.
Is there a reason for that?
I'm
sorry, you said you were shifting things too.
Yeah, part of it is just prioritization.
Okay.
In capacity for what she can do. For the parks themselves, so Lanyon Park, both of them are participation is largely driven of who's coming. Okay, so there's just not enough. Lanyon's been difficult. It's been a city initiative to really get that park much more visible, where people want to come there. It doesn't feel safe for people. Lily's been there. It's been a major initiative. There's recreation staff there doing programming. There's other people there. But there's not enough people coming to it. But also she's been doing it for 3 years, and it's time to look in other places in town. I mean, that's also where that comes from. So it's not to say we won't again or won't explore other parks. It's just kind of fun. This kids with the bags, she does a lot of tours. That's another aspect that Lily does. That was one group. This just shows events done. So what she did herself, which is a lot, with her and other, and then staff solo is like the senior center. She set that up and created it, and now we have other staff that go into it, and that's been working out very well. This just shows throughout the library, every single department helps in outreach. So that's just how important it is. This gets back into tours and other groups that she's done. You can kind of see some of them listed here. A lot of times it's random. Someone will come in or a group will come in, and if we're lucky enough to have her here, she'll grab them and do a full tour of the library. Coming up this year, this is a new thing, by the way, so getting back to your part question. 1,000 Words is a new program, and she's going to be at the farmer's market this summer. That's a new thing to try out to see how that works. It's a well-attended farmer's market, so she's going to do a story time there when people are at the farmer's market. This just shows by quarter participation and outreach in comparison to last year. So some of that varies. Yeah, so an increase in this year over last year, which makes sense. And then just to acknowledge that I left. Yeah. So the Friends of the Library, which we've talked about here, but between really with all of the library programming, and this is one of the major issues for me is I've never worked in a public library in my career until here, where the library didn't have their own budget to support their own programming. And so we rely 100% on the Friends to do any programming. Without them, we wouldn't be doing anything other than checking out books. And programming is huge, and it's just as important these days. And what really, in my mind, what the Friends efforts should be doing is value-added programming, like bringing in a major author or something, or doing other or big events. But day-to-day programming should be within our budget, just like collections are. But that's where we're at, and so I just wanted to point that out here, and that's true for outreach too. So a lot of the stuff Lily does, she can't do without their support. It takes a lot. So that's that. And that was the only thing I really wanted to share in the direct report, which will allow us time for the last two. I mean, certainly if there's questions, but I know we're getting close here.
Just to piggyback, I would be giving the Friends report, and it's very short. They have also had some changes on their board, so they have a new treasurer and a new vice president. They are trying to reinvigorate their membership program, their communications, their own awareness building campaign in the community to let more people know how much they carry. Their next book sale is March 12th through 15th. That's where they will generate 25% of the library's programming budget. They do about 4 sales a year, and that's where it comes from, the combination of sales revenue and what is made through the bookshop. So I can't think of any other news from the Friends, but just members of this board are always allowed and encouraged to volunteer as individuals with the Friends or attend the sales, participate. This was it. City Council.
Okay, so I just received the applications for the Ward 2 person. We had 22 applicants. I believe 4 of them could not prove, one withdrew, and then the other 3 did not submit proof of residency in time. Yeah, so 18. So I did receive them, looking at why do they want to get on city council? What are 2 issues? So they had to answer those. I'd actually asked that the names be redacted. So I am looking at it and I'm just reading the content. I did not want to see, I didn't want to let my own biases, looking at names, get in the way of the content of what their goals and objectives are. So I had met with several residents in Ward 2. People have reached out to me. Anyone who wanted to sit down and chat, absolutely. So I was able, from there, this is the teacher and me, I formed a rubric. So I'm grading them. And my husband's like, you are overly doing this. And I'm like, well, I am taking this seriously. But yeah, the teacher thing in me, and part of me wants to go, there's some grammar stuff in here that I'm like, oh my gosh. You're killing me. So we'll be hearing applicants on the 21st, so a week from tomorrow, and we'll be narrowing it down. So we'll hear everybody. We'll narrow it down to our, I think top 5 or top, once we've narrowed that list down, then we'll be doing a back and forth interview where we were able to submit questions. Each council member submitted their own question. I submitted a question, so 6 in total. And then from there we'll vote. I think they have at least four votes to get appointed to this role. The other thing, and I'm working with the Ed Foundation and city staff on this, Children's Youth and Families, but the 529 jump. I know this, the library was listed as one of the places where they advertise, or they've done events here. So early education at the library. So I think it's for a future. So we had talked about different ways that we can, through PI, through family liaison meetings, discovery days at the museum, early education at the library, got to see those at the elementary schools. I have a dream class, and just connecting with PTOs throughout the district to get students, to get families signing up for these opportunities to invest. So the city has committed so it's $50 per child, pre-K through, right now it's kindergarten through 3rd, but we're looking to expand it. So anyone between pre-K and 5th would be able to, they'd be able to sign on to one of these accounts, receive the $50 and get guidance in opening up an account. So we have College Invest people, we have reps from First Bank, Edward Jones, and Wealth Tree Financial. And so for me, I've been helping out with some translation and connecting with families, especially at our Title I school. So I teach at Indian Peaks Elementary, which is a Title I school. We've had Lillian come out to our building as well. So looking for ways to get this in the hands of people who don't know that it's there, and it's a good opportunity. So that's what we're working on. I think tomorrow we'll be doing the water efficiency. So if anyone's interested in our water efficiency plan, you can tune in during general session or during general business items to hear the presentation. If anyone has any questions for me, let me know. Oh, and you know what? Actually, one more thing. We had our updates with council last week during our pre-session, and I had mentioned the conversations we had about using some council contingency funds. So we had talked about ways, and this is how I believe council can really step up if they, really put our money where our mouth is. But to use $30,000 from council contingency funds to support or purchase the vending machines, the lockers.
The whole pickup locker.
The whole pickup locker. Looking at how, I know one council member had expressed the desire, well, why don't not programs? So my feeling is that programs, it would just be a one and done.
Right.
Yeah.
This would really give us the more bang for our buck in getting the library out there.
I agree.
If anyone from the board or help me, what is something I should make sure that I include as I make my motion tomorrow? Because I will be making the motion tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Okay. I can. Would it help to have some more information about like?
Yeah. If you could send me, I was looking everywhere
have
for
it.
that paper that I wrote down my notes on.
Yeah.
I can't find the little notebook. It was a tiny one.
I'll get you that.
Okay.
Which could maybe help with that.
Mhm.
I just feel like it's becoming a more of a common thing. Which,
Mhm.
but for me, it's like, well, it's something that to get the library out beyond where we are.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, I think, would use the library more, even if it's just for reading and putting holds on, if they could pick up their holds somewhere closer to home.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And not deal with the traffic.
Correct.
Yes.
And people
Yeah.
complain about parking,
Mhm.
so here's the solution. or a solution. But also I think just it gets the library out there, right? And people will see it. They'll see like a Longmont library hold pickup locker, and I think that visibility really could help us grow more.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like this. It's a version for me of it's like small hanging fruit. Like, all right, let's go from the $35 million library to a $30,000 whole pickup locker that I can manage with the staff I have.
Yes.
Currently.
Yes.
And it's a real value added thing for many residents. So there you go. Did you get
Okay, I did. Yeah.
So that
No,
It's all in here, baby.
I'll email you
Okay.
some detailed information, and I'll try to even get a picture or two. I think visuals helps if
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, of course.
And I've talked to other libraries about this and just how quickly the use grows. People are used to this thing, right? People use Amazon pickup lockers all the time.
Yes.
So this is it's not an unusual activity. It's just like, well, the library has it too, right? It's something that everyone's already doing.
So the $30,000 is a one-time
Yes.
thing. And
Yes.
see, that's
And
that's
so it
the
would
other
pay
point.
for
So
that
it's like
capital.
seed money. It's a capital expense.
So it would help pay. It would pay for probably a locker, but we're talking something that would have 20 to 30 or so lockers of space, depending, and then other things that I think the library could probably figure out either on our own or for some other way. Then you get into annual maintenance, right? Like you have to have that, but I think we can probably figure that out somehow. It might be a trade-off on something else within my budget to make it work, but I think we can. Yeah. But that big chunk of upfront money. And
then maybe that is something eventually becomes absorbed into that level one.
Exactly.
So it's
and then that would be my plan is to
Yes.
put it in the next year's budget for basically the ongoing staffing and basically the operational support of a locker or more. So.
And then you can also have information on the locker.
Oh, absolutely.
All sorts of stuff about the library. Yeah. Great.
Events and all those.
Yeah.
So
cool.
It's time we start getting our money where our mouth is. So.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Yeah.
The library profession news, does anyone have anything for this month to share?
Nothing significant that needs to be shared.
This
It
is
impacts this library.
right.
I mean, it doesn't have to impact this library, but anyway, I don't have anything.
Okay. Katie, anyone? This is a standing agenda item. Sometimes one of us finds an article or something that we think is relevant enough to share. So that's just an open invitation to anyone on the board to come with news or resource that they want to share. Any comments now that we are at the end of our meeting? Okay. And next month, just like this month, we're having to shift our meeting date a little bit because of the holiday. So we had voted, I think, in November to have our meeting on the 24th. We have different people now, so just wanting to make sure that that works for the both of you.
Yeah. Because I actually will be away the week before
Okay.
for the holiday.
Wonderful. And, stuff happens too in life. So again, our quorum is 3 to proceed with the meeting. And when Tracy sends out those invites, if you have the ability to RSVP to the invite, either yes, no, maybe, it's really helpful for Tracy and the rest of us to know who we're expecting and who might not be able to attend. So please do try to respond to those if you can. And
Well,
that is it. Yes?
I know I had voted to change that date to the 24th. I can't make the 24th now either. So
Okay.
I won't be able to make it to February's.
So you can't make the 24th.
Mhm.
Who else can't make the 24th? All right, we might be okay if everyone else can make it, but thank you for letting us know. We will adjourn at 9:07 p.m. and this is a long one. I apologize. We don't
But
always
it's
end
been very
this.
helpful to get all the background information.
It felt like
Yeah,
this
we needed
this
to
is a
hear
good
that.
first meeting to just get situated.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for your time and